What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Workshop video. In today's video, I'm going to be building this welding table using a kit from weldtables.com. So this is their 3 foot by 4 foot, I think they call it the Pro table. It's a little bit easier to build than their fab block kits, a little bit cheaper, and so it's kind of perfect for somebody like me who doesn't weld every day. And it's a really simple kit, went together really easily, so let's go ahead and get started with the build. After getting all the pieces for the table out of the box, I wiped them down with some denatured alcohol just to remove any of the oil or other surface contaminants that might have been left over from the cutting process. Next, I started to put the cross braces into their corresponding slots on the bottom of the tabletop, making sure there weren't any burrs or other issues that would keep them from fully seating. Alright, so as you can see, I've got the table kind of partially assembled here. I've added clamps around the entire perimeter of the table, and now I need to clamp up the center. Now, I don't have any clamps that will work in this size hole. It's a 5/8 inch hole, and so what I'm going to do is run some carriage bolts up from underneath. And so I need to get basically a little scrap piece of metal with some matching holes that I can have a bolt on either side of each of these intersections. And basically the purpose of doing this, of using all these clamps and clamping up all these little intersections, is to try to get the top as close with these kind of bracing pieces as possible. Essentially the idea is that all these bracing pieces were cut out with a CNC plasma cutter, so they're extremely straight. And if we remove any sort of gaps between the tabletop and these pieces, that should mean the tabletop should be perfectly flat as well. That's kind of the whole point of these tables, is to try to have a perfectly flat tabletop. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and cut up some scrap steel into some smaller pieces, drill some holes, and then we'll come back and check for flat. I cut 6 pieces from some 1/4 inch thick diamond plate steel I had lying around, and then marked the locations of the holes I'd need to drill. I used 5/16 inch carriage bolts for this and drilled 3/8 inch holes at the drill press. After drilling the holes, I fastened the pieces over each of the cross brace intersections in the center portion of the table and tightened them down. Now that I've got all the cross sections fastened down, and it looks like pretty much all of the gaps between the top and these kind of bracing pieces are gone, now it's time to check with the straight edge to see if it's actually flat. Okay, so it looks like we're a little bit low here in the middle. So what I'm gonna do is just hit these 4 pieces real quick. That will probably be enough just to set them in place a little bit more and get us nice and flat. Once the cross braces were flat, it was time to weld the cross braces together. I used my Lincoln Electric Power MIG 210 MP for this and set it up to weld 3/8 inch thick material. The first part of the welding process on this table was to weld the cross braces to each other. I placed a roughly 3/4 inch long weld at each corner, connecting the 2 intersecting cross braces, and then moved to the next corner. Spreading out the welding like this helps to keep too much heat from building up in one area. Next, I flipped the tabletop over and started welding the cross braces to the tabletop. This tabletop has cutouts that allow you to put a bead into the cutout without creating any type of interference with the flatness of the top. The welds are essentially plug welds and connect the tabletop to the cross braces extremely securely. Once again, I moved around the tabletop, skipping from corner to corner to prevent too much heat buildup. Next, I flipped the top back over and did a dry fit of the leg kit. This leg kit is optional, but I think it's well worth it considering how easily it comes together. Each leg has cutouts that slot into the cross braces, and there are also cutouts for the cross stretchers to nest into. After dry fitting the legs, I welded them together, once again moving from corner to corner to avoid any warping. Ideally, I would have clamped these pieces together before welding them, but I didn't have any clamps long enough for this. Once the base was welded together, I welded the tops of the legs to the cross braces. The last bit of welding was connecting the caster plates to the bottom of the legs. After flipping the table right side up, I used a high grit flap disc just to remove any weld splatter from the top and made sure to flush up any protruding plug welds. With that done, the welding table was finished. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I know this was a little bit non-traditional for me since I was using a kit for this, but honestly, you'd be kind of hard pressed to put together something like this for the same cost, especially once you consider the labor costs for just drilling all these holes, getting the pieces cut to size, that kind of thing. And you're gonna have a really hard time getting anywhere as precise as something like a CNC plasma cutter. So if you want this kind of work holding options on your welding tabletop, definitely having somebody who has access to a plasma cutter, a CNC plasma cutter, would be great. If you have one yourself, obviously you can knock one of these out pretty quick, but if you don't, I think the weldtables.com kit is a pretty good option. So I'll have a link in the video description below if you want to check that out. If this is your first time to the channel, thank you guys so much for watching. If you don't already, go ahead and get subscribed. I put out new project videos like this every Tuesday. Also, I'll have another welding project coming at you next week. I'm gonna be doing a concrete and steel kind of outdoor end table. That should be really cool. So excited for you guys to see that one. And last, if you want to support me a little further, check me out on Patreon. That's a great way to kind of support me continuously. I'll have a list of all my $10 and up patrons here at the bottom of the screen. All right, thanks again for watching, everybody. And until next time, happy building.